Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast. Discover yourself, break out of mediocrity, and become the mom you've always aspired to be. Here's your host, Kirsten Tyrell.
Hello, Marvelous Moms Club. Welcome to today's episode. I'm joined by Tiffany Hebb. She's a really, really special friend of mine who I met just a weekend ago in Salt Lake at a doTERRA retreat. And her story totally caught me off guard. We were talking on our way out the door of something, and you were like, oh, and this happened. And I was like, wait, what? And said it so, not nonchalantly, but just I couldn't believe how well you were coping and dealing. And granted, this happened 3.5 years ago, but you just have the most amazing and happy personality, and I'm just so inspired by you and how you've dealt with your trial. So I'm going to have you share that with everybody. But welcome, Tiffany, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It was actually interesting when I told you how my son died, and I just, because it's a really touchy subject, obviously, and then when I share it with people, some people are like, oh yeah, so anyway, the weather's really nice, and yeah. But you were actually like, oh yeah, your son died, what? So anyway, so I will tell you the story.
I can't believe people do that they're like, oh yeah, the weather's nice. Is it just makes them uncomfortable? Maybe they don't know what to say.
I think so.
Okay.
Oh. And I get that, but so I kind of just tell it nonchalantly because I'd never know the reaction I'm going to get. So
okay, that's why you said it. Yeah, because actually my son died, and I want to start a podcast for grieving parents, and I was like, oh, what? So we even got the chance to be roommates, which is so cool because I didn't know the story before we became roommates, and got to hear the entire story. And wow. So feel free to share as much or as little as you want. You guys may have heard this story in the news. It was very, very, very publicized 3.5 years ago.
Yep.
Okay. So go ahead and share it, your version.
Yeah, actually I had people from Africa emailing me, people from Australia. So yeah, it got heard all over the world. And probably because it is pretty shocking, but I'll try to condense it a little bit, but I want to get the heart of it out there and the feeling of it all and how deep and raw and heartbreaking it all is. So basically, I had a 2-year-old, and I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter. And me and my son Ollie, and my husband lived in Oregon. And that morning that he actually died, we were just doing laundry like we did every day. We were, I would go in and put some clothes in, and he would help me put some clothes in, and we did that all the time. And that particular morning, I was washing my sheets, and I think from what the detectives say that he went back in to put a sock back into the washing machine, and it was actually a top loader. And I put my sheets in, and we both walked out of the room. And I walked around the corner, and I thought that he was following right behind me, and it seriously had only been 30 seconds. And then I looked, called all over the house for him, couldn't find him. And every mom knows that panic instantly hits you like, oh no, something's wrong. Where are they? And I couldn't find him. And I seriously knew within that 30 seconds that something was wrong. And I didn't know what was wrong, obviously, but I knew I couldn't find him. I couldn't hear him, and the panic started to build in my chest, and it just got so intense, and I was frantically running around the house, and I had known that it hadn't been very long because my stairs are right by the laundry room, and I thought, oh, he went up the stairs, but I couldn't even see him on the stairs, so I knew he wasn't there because it had been that short of an amount of time. So anyway, I run all over my house, opening doors, everything. And then I remembered, obviously, that I was just in the laundry room, but there's no way he could be in there. All that's in there is my washer and dryer, and that was it. But something told me to go back in there, and I fought against it it was probably, 10 seconds, but I kept fighting against it, and I didn't want to go in there, probably because I knew what I would find. And I had a top loader, and the washing machine lid was open, and I thought, well, this is really weird because I had started the washing machine, and I heard it agitating, and the lid was open, and I just had this feeling. I didn't see anything moving. There was nothing. The water was still, and the washing machine had stopped. So I was like thinking I should put my hands in, and I didn't want to because I knew what I would find. And I just remember reaching my hands in and feeling his cold little body, and I knew that it was just horrible to feel your child in this washing machine. It's just horrific in every way, because a washing machine, like, come on, who would have thought? Like, I didn't think that. And I know a lot of other mothers would never think that. And that is a reason I do share my story, is because there are so many dangers in the home, and it feels overwhelming. That's just one more you got to add to your list. But it is a danger. And so I found my son in there, and I quickly raised his head above the water and screamed a blood-curdling scream. All my neighbors actually heard it because their doors were open. I just ran out my front door, and basically all my neighbors were already running towards my house because they heard me yell, "Help, call 911, and my child's in the washing machine." And seriously, like 7 people ran to my house because I must have yelled so loud. It was a blood-curdling scream, like they say. And so I couldn't get Ollie out. He was actually physically stuck in the washing machine, and my friend knew it was too hard for me to see her yank him out, but she just started pulling him out and said, "Tiffany, go out of the room." And she just yanked his little body out and carried him over, and 2 people started giving him CPR while I called my husband to tell him what was wrong. And it's pretty horrific to see your child, 5 minutes before we were playing, giggling, we had a bath that morning. It was just a great morning. And 5 minutes later, how it can turn into something that's your worst nightmare. It's unreal, unimaginable, horrific in every way, and intense. Like, your body doesn't even know how to handle that kind of pain, I feel like, and that shock, but somehow you live through it. So anyway, the paramedics came. They did, I guess, sort of revive him. They got a heartbeat, but it wasn't life-sustaining. And so they had to take him to the hospital and transport him there in the ambulance. And once you're on life support, they say legally they have to try to do everything they can in their power to keep you alive for 24 hours. And then after that 24 hours, they can take you off life support. So basically for 24 hours, we watched him. His eyes would blink and his hands would curl and his body would do weird things. And for 24 hours to see your child do this, it's intense, to say the least. And then
and there was no brain activity either. This was all just auto response.
Yep. Which gives you a little bit of hope, because we were like, oh, he opened his eyes, he's looking at us. But the doctors would come in and say, no, it's just his autonomic nervous system taking over. He had 0% brain activity, so everything had died. He drowned, and basically he died on the 23rd, but they got a heartbeat basically with machines. So the machines were kind of keeping him alive, keeping his body warm at least. And then all of our family came, we said our goodbyes, and then at that 24-hour mark, we knew that we had to take him off life support. Obviously, 0% brain activity, he couldn't live. They said his body would naturally die anyway within 3 hours on the machines, because with no brain activity, you can't stay alive, I guess, on machines even. So we took him off, and it was horrible in every way. Just to know that was the final moments we would get to spend with him, because while he was on the machine, I feel like, there's still some hope. I don't know why. Probably because I could see his chest rise and fall. I could see his eyes flutter. There was still some movement. His body was warm. But when we took him off life support, he just slowly gurgled, or whatever you want to call it, for 6 more hours while he just gasped for breath. Basically, I don't know why it was 6 hours, but just transitioning from this life to the next. And it was hardcore in every way. And I didn't like any of it. I wanted to run. I wanted to die myself. My husband and I both said if there was a button at the time to push, we would have pushed a button to go with him. But I was 8 months pregnant, so that was my reason to live and to keep going on to fight for this other baby inside of me. So, we planned the funeral, buried him, and then I had another baby within a month. So my hormones were crazy, and I felt like a crazy woman for like pretty much 3 years. So I had my daughter a month later, and then I got pregnant a year later, and I was still at a horrible grieving place in my life, and I was weeping and wailing on the floor day after day. I was living in Oregon. It was rainy. I had no family up there, and it was quite miserable, and I was not at a good spot, but I was pregnant again, and I think the trauma of it all, which is so intense, obviously, on our body, that I had a premature baby at 28 weeks. My water broke at 21 weeks, and I was on strict bed rest for 7 weeks until I had him at 2 pounds. And we thought, oh, great, we're going to lose another child, and it's another boy. So he was on at the same hospital that Ollie had died at, which is so weird. So I had said goodbye 1 year earlier to my son in horrible circumstances. And now we thought we were going to say goodbye to another son. We didn't, and he survived and still is a fighter today. And he's now 2 years old. He was in the hospital for 3 months. So we're really, I guess we like hospitals or something.
Should have frequent hospital miles.
I know. We pretty much do.
Yeah, you should be earning frequent hospital miles or something, because, and you and I talked about this, how terrible that was to be reminded, and all those, and have to be on bed rest in the hospital, right? For 7 weeks. Like, that was the most depressing time for you. I can't even imagine how you could escape that when you're physically in the place where it happened. So
there was not much escaping other than I was just trying to fight for this child, because I knew I had a little bit more control. Whereas with Ollie, I didn't have any control, I felt like.
Yeah.
But thinking back to that day, I know we had talked about this, that I really feel like it was his time. And I don't know if it was his time to be found in a washing machine. I don't really necessarily believe that, but I do believe there were little steps leading up to that point in his life that I knew those things were meant to happen, and that he was meant to die and transition from this life and move on to the next phase. I do strongly believe that. That morning he was actually kind of somber. He was kind of always a quiet little boy, but he was kind of somber, and he was staring out the window, singing and humming, looking out our sliding glass window. And looking back, like right after he had died, I had this feeling that he was looking out at the angels that were coming to get him. And I strongly believe the angels are around us when we die. I don't know that, but I feel that as a mom. And I feel like our thoughts and heart go a long way as far as with our children.
Yeah.
And that's actually another thing. I always wondered why I didn't have my mother's intuition that so many of us feel like we have with our children. Why didn't I get that mother's intuition or instincts to say, okay, something's wrong here. Something's going to happen that's going to change my world. Yeah, and I don't know why I never got that, but I got little messages. I've got them now that it was meant to be, and that was his time to transition. And I truly do believe we are all called home when it's our time, because how can you explain when somebody dies and they shouldn't have, or someone doesn't die and it's a miracle that they survived? There's no explaining. So, and maybe that's my way of coping with the tragic accident that it was, but it's how I'm getting through. Yeah. So it's helping me.
I think it's a good way to get through, actually. And I love how you say transition too, because we talked about this in the hotel room, that when we talk about our loved ones who have died, and I don't think they'd appreciate, the saying, well, they're dead. Well, they feel very much alive. They're just in a totally different place. And I think most of us have faith that there is a much better place out there that they go to. So I think that's a much better way to look at it. You didn't lose him forever. He's just kind of unavailable right now. And how else could you cope with that? I can't imagine not believing in heaven and not believing that you would see your child again. That doesn't seem like, oh, I just couldn't even do it. So that's a good way to look at it. And so you have come so far from being the wailing and gnashing of teeth on the floor, having a premature baby a couple years ago, to the person you are now. Because like I said, first meeting you, and that's the thing too I want to say to everyone. We see these quotes and stuff all the time. Be careful what you say, or be kind, because you never know what people are going through. You never know the battle that they're facing. And even though you're doing a lot better now, if I first met you and maybe I didn't like you and I was mean to you, like I would never know based on your personality that you had gone through this terrible thing or the things that you had faced. And I did like you, for the record.
Thank you.
But never, ever rule somebody out. You don't know their story. You don't know their background. You don't know the demons that they face every day. And so tell me about how you've kind of healed over the last year and what's really helped you and how you continue to heal.
Actually, for me, the very biggest thing, actually, there's two really big things. And one of them is connecting with other mothers that have lost a child, because like you and I can connect, but you just don't understand the grief. And I am so thankful that you don't. So when I meet another mom, it's this weird thing. Like, I'm so thankful that they can relate, but also in a weird way, I wish that they couldn't, because then I know that they've lost a child too and have felt this deep pain like nothing else. And for me to connect in that way has been huge, because I don't feel so crazy. I don't feel so weird and isolated and lonely. So I kind of reached out to a lot of moms, and a lot of moms reached out to me. And there were mothers that had reached out that had been grieving for 5+ years. And that was really helpful, because I could see okay, I'm not going to be stuck in this grief forever, and I'm not going to feel this wailing and gnashing of teeth my entire life, hopefully. So, but then there were moms that I loved connecting with that had just gone through the tragedy, because it was so raw and real, and we could connect on that level that was different too. So for me, it's been connecting with other mothers through social media, whatever, finding them on the news and I write to them or whatever, hearing of their tragic story. And I think it's been healing for both, to both ways, them and me. And then also having my hope that he is in a better place. I really, truly believe that it's something way more magnificent than this earth, and that he's happy and he's okay. I feel that in my heart. And that's what I've been trying to do this last year, is really connect with that higher power, that higher being, with God, with Ollie, on a level that is truly beautiful, and it's very hard to find in this life. And I've done that through meditation, through yoga, through connecting with other moms, really trying to be with myself and find my true soul, which I find only when I'm quiet and still. And also I've done it through essential oils. They have helped motivate my mood and my depression and my anxiety. And so I found lots of ways that have helped, and I've actually taken tinctures, and I've tried to do it all the natural way. I didn't want to be on antidepressants, but I know a lot of moms are. I just didn't. For me, that was not an option. So I've had to find other alternative routes, and they've really worked.
Well, obviously. You're doing really good. Well, I mean, I
don't know.
Being open about it, even how you are, and not trying to hide from who you are and what you've gone through, I feel like would make it a lot easier to feel normal again too, because you're like, this is my reality, this is my normal, take it or leave it. And opening up like that, and the way you can speak about it makes people, it doesn't make anybody feel uncomfortable, and if anything, that just makes them fascinated and want to know, because it's every mother's worst fear to lose a child. And you talk to somebody who's gone through it and you're like, oh my gosh, they really have survived this. And it gives you a little bit of hope to where any trial you face, as horrific as that, or maybe something a little less horrific, you can come out on top and you can overcome anything, really. And we talked about this. There's people who let it ruin their whole entire life, and they go through life as a zombie, and there's really no point in them, still being around, because they're not actually living. And then there's somebody like you who's, you've taken the time to grieve and you've taken the time to hurt, and now you're realizing, well, and you've said, like, you have 2 more children now, so you have a reason to keep going. And it is hard when there's parents who lose their only child, and makes it a lot harder to find that purpose and that drive to keep going. But you've done a beautiful job.
Thank you. Well, and for me, I saw those, someone told me the analogy of those 2 people. You can either be the zombie that's the dead mom, and what's your point of even being here? Or you can be the mom that still lives and shows your other 2 children just as much joy as I showed my first child. And they need that love, and they deserve that happiness and that joy. And I feel like if I wasn't that kind of mom that I am slowly turning into, the better mom, that my son would have died in vain, and I would have learned nothing from it. And so for me, that's another big driving force, is you can still survive and be happy.
Yeah. And why maybe did this happen to me? Because I know that's a hard one. That's like a big why. Why did it have to happen in this way? Or why did it have to be so painful or so horrific? But yeah, I guess those are answers we don't always get right away. And that's what faith is for.
Yep.
Well, you're just so amazing. And I absolutely love the way that you've taken and rolled with it. I mean, you guys, she got a lot of really hateful mail and messages and everything when this happened. People looking at it from the wrong way and thinking that she did it on purpose. And I think you can tell by talking to her, and I know her personally now, that is just so not, that would never even be on my radar. I don't know how people can be so heartless, but we all need to be really careful what we say, because tragic things happen like this all the time. Accidents, babies getting left in cars, and you can say what you want to say about it. You can say it's neglect, but we need to be loving and understanding and kind. And so I really hope you do start this podcast for parents who've lost children. And you guys leave a comment. Leave a comment if you think that you know somebody who would benefit from this, or if you personally would like to hear more about these types of things, and if you need this type of comfort, because I really want Tiffany to get it going. I think it's an important thing to talk about. The more we talk about the hard stuff, the less scary it becomes. And that's the power of social media.
Well, and I want people to be able to talk about death and approach me with it. And so, thanks for the push to do the grieving moms. Whatever this is what is this even called? I don't even know.
Marvelous Moms Podcast. We'll do a spin-off, Grieving Moms.
Podcast, yes. Okay.
Oh my gosh, you're so cute. Well, I think
Thank you so much, though,
bet.
for having me.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to bring awareness to the washing machine, to grieving. And I also have a blog that I've shared with a lot of people in general, or people that have been grieving, but I don't know how you can share my blog, but
I'll post in the
people
show
can
notes.
go there.
Go ahead and say, what's the URL?
It's hebbsters.blogspot.com.
Okay, so HEBBSTERS .blogspot.com. I'll post it in the notes, but in case you're just like listening and you don't have a chance to, if you want to look at it right now, go ahead and check it out. I love it. I love that you've used your experience to help make other people's lives a little bit better and comfort people. And I know we talked about this. My sister-in-law was on the podcast, and the more that she let herself share those experiences and be around other mothers who are facing the same thing, it helped her to heal. And also she loved being able to feel her son with her, the spirit of her son with her every time that she was in those situations. And I know you said you feel that too. So what better way to invite that sweet little spirit back into your life than by sharing a story and sharing, your feelings with other mothers. So thanks for being brave and sharing it here.
Thank you so much. It is healing to share it. So thank you. You're helping me heal. So thanks.
Good. You're so welcome. I'm happy to do that anytime.
Okay.
So what are you reading, if anything? Do you have time to read in your busy, crazy life?
To read?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, yes.
You should start reading The Miracle Morning with us on the podcast. I mean, on the Marvelous Moms group.
Yeah. Okay. Miracle Morning.
It's a good one.
Okay.
We're having
We're
having our first meeting on Tuesday. You've never heard of it? Oh, you're gonna love it. It's a good book.
Okay. I'll write it down.
It'll give you more hours in your day. It's a good one.
Okay.
So you can make time to read with us. You can join the Marvelous Moms Book Club.
Okay. Yeah.
And then finally, what makes you a marvelous mom?
Oh, well, this has been really hard because, my son died and I didn't blame myself ever, but it's been really hard to find what I even like about myself. And so I've really had to fight through that. But I think I just really pay attention to them. And when they want my attention, I really try to get down on the floor and play with them at that moment. Whatever I'm doing, I try to stop and do that because I might not ever get that moment back. So that makes me a marvelous mom. That's really hard for me to say that. But
I'm glad you said it with such gusto the second time around,
thank
though.
you.
I think that makes you marvelous,
Hard.
too. I mean, you're taking what happened and you're learning from it. And not learning from it, but you're using that life lesson that you don't want any minutes to go to waste, and you're sharing those with your kids. So we all need to take a cue from that as well, because you just never know what the future holds, and we don't want to live in fear, but we never want to have regrets. So that's a good way to parent.
Thanks. You're a marvelous mom too for doing this. That's really awesome of you.
Oh, thank you, Tiffany. You're so sweet. I'm so glad that we are friends now, and that I love having the podcast because it gives me a reason to really delve deep into people's stories. And I was like the crazy person at the retreat. Like, do you want to be on my podcast? Do you want to be on my podcast? But there's so many amazing stories and marvelous moms out there. It's so cool to have different ways to meet them. So I'm really glad that I got to meet you, and it was all meant to be.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was.
Thank you. All right, guys, have a great day. And I hope you haven't cried too hard. If you have, then do something happy and lift up your spirits. And thank you, Tiffany, for sharing your story. We will
Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you next time. And hey, Marvelous Moms, tonight is the very first ever Zoom meeting. We're going to be talking about our book, The Miracle Morning. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, head over to the Facebook group and make sure that you are joined into the event that I've created and come and chat with us about the book. If you haven't read it at all and you just want to hear what everybody's learning, you are welcome to join us. So join us tomorrow, actually tonight at 7:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we will chat about The Miracle Morning. Have a great day.